Hello, good morning. Welcome to yet another exciting edition of Let's Talk Ghana here on Studios 2 Television. I am your host, Eric Mawina Egbeta. On today's edition, we bring you what is now the final verdict of the Special Committee of the National Democratic Congress on the outstanding constituency, the KETU North constituency, following the discrepancies recorded there over the parliamentary primary. The NDC now says that Edem Agbana is the victor in the KETU North constituency elections. We bring you details as to exactly what the party has been saying in the controversial poll, which has left a lot of tongues wagging. Stay with us here on Studios 2 Television. We return shortly to delve into the matters. Welcome back to Let's Talk Ghana here on Studios 2 Television. This is the show where we put Ghana first in all of our conversations. It airs every Mondays, Wednesdays and Thursdays here on Studios 2 Television on YouTube as well as on Facebook. It is a delight to always get feedback from you as to exactly the contents that we bring to you. So leave a message for us in the comment section on Facebook as well as on YouTube, and we will do the reading in subsequent editions of the show. Today on the program, we're continuing with what has been consistent coverage of the primaries by the largest opposition party in the country, the National Democratic Congress. On Monday, we took you through a number of constituencies and painted a picture as to exactly what happens at the primaries, the commentary from some of the aspirants, and the lies and responses from some of them. We ended in KETU North constituency, where the result of the primary was thrown into controversy and media battle between two leading candidates, Edem Agbana and John Adanu. What really happened? Well, after voting concluded on Saturday, votes counted for Edem Agbana stood at 360, and that for his main contender, John Adanu, stood at 359, and so just one vote. It was just that vote which was the difference. But the polling agent of John Adanu demanded a recount, which was granted by officials of the Electoral Commission. It still remained at 359. So what then did they do? They demanded a recount of the vote of Edem Agbana. Then the Electoral Commission said, you have to come with a written response. And so hurriedly, they went to put on paper the demand for the recount of Edem Agbana's vote as well. And in all of that ordered process, the initial result of Edem Agbana, which stood at 360, eventually was reduced to 358 because there were two electoral ballot papers which were not stamped by the officials of the Electoral Commission. And one for John Adanu as well was not stamped, which brought to a close 358 for both candidates. The result has been acrimony on social media between supporters of John Adanu and Edem Agbana, and infighting between the largest opposition party in the KETU North constituency, which is a stronghold of the NDC. What has been the outcome of all of the deliberations? Well, over the weekend, the news was that they were expected to meet the party executives on Monday. That did not happen, but yesterday, the meeting did take place, and we'll bring you content of exactly what happened. But I subjected the controversy and all of the happenings to an analyst in the Volta region who's taken interest in politics there, Harrison Kofi Bele, and he argued strongly that a rerun was the only option. Here is what he told me in an interview.
I think the party to handle this issue with care. It's a very complicated issue. I think they should not succumb to any pressure from anywhere. They should go by the principles, what they have captured in their guidelines, and what the electoral laws say. If in the event of a tie, what is required is a rerun. So why should the youth be demanding that one of the candidates the aspirant be declared winner when there's a tie. The rule says that if a ballot paper is not stamped, it's declared invalid. And they have discovered that. So why the insistence on declaring the person winner when invalid votes are included in his vote? So I believe that we should go by the rules of the game. And that is very, very important because the forces, the people are claiming that forces are behind these rules, pushing them to that extent. When there is a law that should be respected, why should they push for it? In what direction? So
but Mr. Bella, the argument that can be made quite simply is that it wasn't the fault of the electorate for the EC not stamping the ballot papers. If you check, that's the narrative from the ground, that if you check the ballot papers, it does tally. If the EC failed to stamp the ballot papers, it shouldn't be their fault. That's the argument that you are making.
But what does the law say? The law says that if it is not stamped, so that is why they are human beings. Error occurs. So you must live with it and go for a rerun. So what happens tomorrow? The other candidates are down. The people also come out to say he should be declared a winner. So you can imagine the confusion that will erupt. And I can bet you that if the party or any group that push for the imposition of Edem Agbana onto the seat can cause the party defeat. Don't forget, that seat is already a hot seat in the sense that the current CEO of the Power Authority, Honorable Kufidem, contested on 3 occasions. And in the last election, you saw the number of votes that he put there. So that seat can be under threat if they are not united in that direction.
Right then.
So they should be very careful, where some of the aspirants have started accusing regional executives of interfering. Some are claiming that national executives are pushing for some other aspirants. No, they should be very careful about it. It is a complicated issue that they need to handle with tact.
Well, the party executives, along with the 2 individuals, are meeting this afternoon. What would be your expectation?
My submission would be that they should let the rules operate. The party should not go on the tangent on imposing the candidate, as far as Edem Agbana on the people. Let the will of the people reign supreme. That is what the law says. So when they say tie, they should go for a rerun.
So that's Harrison Kofi Bele in that interview speaking with us here at Studios 2 Television on what the expectation was for the NDC ahead of the meeting. The meeting did take place at the national headquarters of the largest opposition party. It was chaired by the chair of the NDC, the chairman of the NDC, Johnson Asedun Kiti. And so what happened was that a special committee was set up by the NDC with presence from the general secretary as well, Fifi Avikwete, and then the voter regional chair of the NDC, Malto Agbavito, as well as the regional secretary of the NDC, James Gunu. Then there was Edem Agbana and his polling agent, and then John Adanu, his polling agent, and their various supporters. The supporters were not a part of the meeting. And it lasted over 2 hours, that meeting, which sought to resolve all of the differences from the KETU North constituency. And it's become a subject of serious controversy and a lot of interest from social media. In the end, the NDC took a decision that Edem Agbana is the victor from the parliamentary primary in the KETU North constituency. Fifi Avikwete addressed the media. We at Studios 2 Television were present. Here are the details from that press conference.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen of the media, for being available at such short notice. This afternoon, the national executives of the party set up a group, a committee to look into the issues that emerged as a result of the parliamentary primaries in the KETU North constituency. The committee was chaired by the national chairman of the party, and we effectively took time to listen to the parties in the KETU North parliamentary primaries. We first listened to the regional reps who were in charge of supervising the elections. We listened carefully to the view coming from the regional executives, listened to the constituency executives who effectively formed the constituency election committee, and also took time to listen to the two key candidates and their representatives. So ours was simply to find all the facts, and on the back of all those facts, be in a position to make a determination. Now, what it is we were able to ascertain was that the election, the primaries were done, and it went very well, peacefully. There was no hitch at all in the process of the vote. The sorting process also went very well. And then the counting of the ballot started. And I think the first, what the rule was to start from the very last candidate on the ballot and come all the way to the number one. Now, so in the process of that, the determination was made as to what the number 8 on the ballot got, what number 7 got, what number 6 got, what number 5 got. Now, when it came to number 4, which was candidate Edem Agbana, the counting was done, and his number was also declared. Then from there, number 3 was declared. Then number 2, that happened to the candidate John Adam. Now, when that counting was done, the agent for candidate John Adano requested that there should be a recount of his candidate's number. Somehow, I think that came because it was so close. It was just one vote short of candidate Edem Agbana. So he requested for a recount to be done. And that recount was done, and it was still the same one ballot short of that of Edem Agbana. Now, subsequent to that, there was a request that that of Edem Agbana also be recounted. Electoral Commission insisted that some petition be done. The long and short, that of Edem Agbana also was done. And in the process of doing Edem Agbana's counting, the issues emerged to the fact that some of the ballot, about 2 of the ballot in Edem's counting, were not stamped by the Electoral Commission. What subsequently happened was that back and forth, eventually there was an understanding that there was going to be a check of virtually all the other counting that had been done in order to see whether similar thing had happened. And long and short, 5 ballots in all were seen not to have been stamped. The 2 that were coming from Edem Agbana, 1 that came from candidate John Adam, and then there were 2 more that also came from another candidate. The name is Kwame Gan. What's the name there? Okay. So there was a 3rd candidate that had 2 ballots that also were not stamped. Now, so our committee, we sought to find out whether those 5 ballots that were not stamped, were they foreign materials that were not part of the booklet, that the ballots that were sent from the national office to that constituency or not. That for us was important. And the reason why we wanted to establish that was simply to know whether it was simply a fault that came from the Electoral Commission, their inability to do their work well at that level, or it was a fault that came from one of the candidates conspiring to try to cheat in the process. I think by and large, we got a consensus coming from across the table that the 5 ballot papers were an integral part of the booklet of ballots that came from the national office and went through to that constituency. So there was no doubt at all that the 5 ballot papers were an integral part of the booklet, and therefore they were not foreign materials. We also checked and we saw that there was no overvoting. That's the tallying process done by the independent and by the candidates, the agent of all these candidates, tallied and harmonized with exactly the ballot papers that were found in the ballot board as well. And so these for us were the most important pieces of information we wanted to ascertain. Now, so having come to the understanding, which across the table we had, that the ballot papers were authentic, the 5 were part of the booklet of ballot that was supposed to go to KETU South, and therefore, and that those 5 ballot papers were clearly an important and integral part of the booklet. We therefore were in a position to say that what the voters had expressed in the original counting that had happened actually is the authentic expression of the will of the people of KETU North. Now, so according to that original intention, even though it was such a very, very close contest, we needed to go with the original result. And that original result had candidate Edem Agbana having 360 votes, followed very closely by candidate John Adam, who had 359. Very close as it was, we needed to go with the will of the great people of KETU North, because that is truly what their will was. And so we wanted to use the opportunity to simply tell you that at the end of the day, the committee, headed by the national chairman, aided by my own self, together with the panel, came to that conclusion, and we have communicated that to the 2 parties and to their agenda came with them, to the regional executive and to the constituency executives, that the will of KETU North, which is that Edem Agbana was the one that won the most number of votes on the day, even though it was that close. Edem Agbana will be declared the candidate, the parliamentary candidate for KETU North.
Fifi Fiavikwete, he is the General Secretary of the NDC, speaking, flanked by the Chair of the Voter Regional NDC, Mauto Agbavito, and as well the Regional Secretary, James Gunu. One of the other things which was arrived at during that 2+ hour meeting was that now declared victor of the KETU North constituency, Edem Agbana, apologized to executives of the party in the region because there were unsavory comments made during the entire process when the tensions were heated and all of that. And so Edem Agbana as well took the opportunity to apologize to members of the NDC in the voter region.
Okay. Well, good evening to all of you. I want to use this opportunity to first thank the Special Committee of the National Executive Committee that sat on the matter, and to thank them for bringing finality to this issue. We also want to say a big thank you to the regional and constituency executives of the NDC, who all agreed to be party to the meeting that led to the resolution of this matter. Let me also thank my opponents for, especially Mr. John Adam and his team of lawyers, also for being a part of the meeting, and to say that I want to retract and apologize sincerely for some comments made in the heat of the moment. As we all know, when the tensions were high, we granted some interviews and said certain things that we consider unpalatable, and so we apologize for those statements. I want to use this platform to call for unity. The party's interest is key. It is important for all of us to unite to maintain the KETU North seat, and as a campaign team, we made a singular promise to the good people of KETU North to get 85% of the vote in the 2024 general elections. We need unity to achieve that, and so I want to use this platform to call everyone in the constituency and outside the constituency who are stakeholders to help us achieve that. So I also want to call on my supporters to be very modest in the celebrations, no teasing or trolling of opponents, because the most important thing is that we have been declared winners. What is left for us now is the work ahead of us, which is to mobilize, get to every house, every corner, every community to get the votes for His Excellency John Dramani Mahama and for myself as the parliamentary candidate. Let's work with everybody, bring everybody on board, unite the party, and I believe that KETU North has greater prospect in national politics. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Agbana there speaking, and so it puts to bed all of the controversy, all of the misunderstanding. Now the NDC says that they are committed. They want to win 85% of the votes come election 2024. And so that's the position. On Monday and on today's edition of the show, we've centered largely on the largest opposition party, the National Democratic Congress. But while we're at it, the newly elected parliamentary candidate as well for the Asawasi constituency, Mohammed Muntaka Mubarak, has also been speaking, expressing misgivings that some party leaders who he says plotted and schemed against him to lose his parliamentary candidature. That did not work as he emerged victorious. In all, 16 incumbent members of parliament. Now the indication is that there are 17. They lost their bid to return to parliament during the 2024 elections, and it puts to bed all of the primaries from the largest opposition party from over the weekend. There are a number of constituencies that continue to remain on hold. One of such is the Ayawaso West Wogon. As and when there are details from there, we'll bring them to you. But that's our show for today here at Let's Talk Ghana. It airs every Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Do stay tuned. As always, leave a message for us. I am Eric Mawina Egbete. A pleasure that you could be a part of today's edition of the show.
Studios 2 TV. The truth is here in your eyes.